Let's talk about sound waves and how the ear converts sound waves into impulses that our brain can interpret. Sound waves are compressions of air molecules. And so as you hear someone talking, what is happening is that the air molecules are being compressed and then are moving through the ear canal to the tympanic membrane, the eardrum. So now let's look at the events that eventually result in the stimulation of those auditory receptors in the ear. The next series of pictures will take us through the series of steps that are involved in converting sound waves into action potentials that are transmitted to the brain. Sound waves are collected by the pinna or auricle of the ear and then are transmitted through the external auditory canal and then, of course, cause the tympanic membrane, the eardrum, to vibrate. This in turn will cause the malleus, incus, and then stapes to vibrate. When the stapes vibrates, it causes the oval window, a thin membrane that's at the beginning of the cochlea, to vibrate. As the stapes moves back and forth, it pushes the membrane of the oval window in and out. When the oval window bulges inward, it pushes on the fluid called the perilymph of this top chamber called the scala vestibuli. These pressure waves then are transmitted from the scala vestibuli all the way down the length of the cochlea and then to the scala tympani, and eventually those waves are transmitted all the way to the round window. But here's the important part that relates to how these pressure waves are transmitted into action potentials inside of the ear. As we can see in this portion and in this portion of the diagram, these pressure waves deform the walls of the scala vestibuli, and they also push on the vestibular membrane, which we will see in a later picture in order to make this more clear. These pressure waves cause the endolymph that's inside of the cochlear duct to vibrate. Those pressure waves that are in the endolymph of the cochlear duct cause the membrane that's at the bottom of the cochlear duct, called the basilar membrane, to vibrate. When they vibrate, this moves the hair cells of the spiral organ against the tectorial membrane. And this leads to bending of the hair cells, which then produces receptor potentials that ultimately lead to the generation of nerve impulses to the brain. And as mentioned earlier, the pressure waves are transmitted in the scala tympani all the way back down to the round window. As mentioned before, pressure waves that are traveling in the scala vestibuli push down on this vestibular membrane, which then causes a pressure inside of the cochlear duct. We can see inside of the cochlear duct the organ that contains the sensory receptors, called the spiral organ or organ of Corti. And here we have the organ of Corti is magnified. When that endolymph inside of the cochlear duct receives a pressure wave, it causes this basilar membrane to vibrate. When the basilar membrane vibrates, then the hair bundles that are embedded inside of the tectorial membrane will vibrate, and this causes a generator potential, which then results in an action potential being sent to the brain.